We are ready to begin step number 7 and step number 8. Step number 7 says trim corners to reduce bulk. So what we need to do is we need to trim at our corners our seam. So I know it's kind of hard to see up close, but where we pivoted at our corners, we should see a nice clean corner. We need to cut our fabric on the diagonal or even on a slight curve to reduce the bulk to get a nice clean corner when we turn it inside out. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate that for you. We want to make sure that we keep our fabric flat, and I'm actually going to cut mine on a slight U. So as I'm cutting, I am not actually cutting my stitching. I'm just cutting the extra fabric. So if you look, what I have cut off looks like this. And when we look up close, you can see that there is just a little bit of seam allowance left from where I pivoted. This will give you a nice, clean, crisp corner whenever we turn our project inside out, or right side out, excuse me. We are going to reduce the bulk on our diagonal corners because that is needed as well. Maybe not as sharp of a U, but it helps reduce our seam allowance. One last corner, and then we will be ready to move on. So these scraps can just go in the trash. Get it there in a minute. So you can see our shape looks a little weird because it's pretty rounded, but we are ready to begin step number 8 that says turn cover right side out. Be sure to push out all corners, press. So that's why we're at the ironing board, because we're gonna need to do some pressing. So we left an opening in the middle bottom. We want to turn our fabric inside out or right side out from the opening of our outer and our outer and our lining. So I'm going to put my hand inside. That's why I typically have you use your hand as a guide. I typically grab the top, and from there I start to pull my fabric right side out through that hole. So keep working. Takes a little bit of time, especially if you have a little bit of a smaller hole. It may take you a little bit longer. So as we start to get our shape of our project, we are going to really work on pressing or pushing out those corners. So you can use your fingers. Once we get it all laying pretty flat, if you want to use like a pencil or something, you can. We just don't want to use scissors or a seam ripper because that can actually cut our fabric, and we do not want that to happen. So push out that corner. See what else we have left. I think we have one more down here. It is really important that we get all of these corners pushed out. If you don't, you're gonna have your fabric that's folded and it's not gonna give you a super clean look. So let's look at this. I'm gonna work on flattening it out, but just with my hands to begin with. You can see I'm getting my shape. We have our opening down here. When we start to iron, we're actually gonna iron this to make it look like it's sewn, and there's no raw edges that are being shown. So my corners actually look pretty good. They're pretty pointy. We want to get them as strong as a point as possible. So right here, you can see this corner didn't get pushed out. So I'm gonna put my hand back in, and I want to push this top corner out. We do not want any folded extra fabric. From here, if you need to, take a pencil. I'm gonna take this pencil carefully, not push it too hard because we don't want to break or rip our fabric. I'm gonna go for each of my corners and give them a nice clean push. The diagonals are pretty easy. My last corner, and now I'm ready to begin pressing. So we want to get this as flat as we can while getting all of our corners nice and sharp, and then making sure that our middle bottom, where that opening is folded under so it looks like it's sewn, because we'll actually sew this up later, but not yet. You can kind of press and iron as you go. I like to go all the way around my edges first. We want to make sure that we do not see our lining here, okay? If you see a little bit, like you can kind of see down at the bottom, there's a very small amount of lining that you can see, that's fine. But we want to get all of our edges as smooth and flat as we can. Shouldn't take too awful long. If you see any like threads hanging out, trim those off, pull them if you can. If for some reason some of your interfacing wasn't all the way stuck, this is a good time to kind of get that last little bit stuck if you need to. And then we are ready to move on to step number 9.